Hello, viewers. I'm SB.
And I'm Amabel.
Gosh, where's Amabel? I guess she's not here today. Hopefully, she
You didn't
doesn't
hear me?
sneak up on me during the record. I don't. I thought you were doing a. I was trying to play into a bit. Whatever it
Oh,
is that
I'm
you were
sorry.
doing. Um,
Okay.
Welcome back to Humankind, where we are meeting the other players. We're getting a better grasp of the world. We're seeing land masses, places out in the dark yet. And we are potentially considering maybe preparing for military something or other eventually. Have you noticed, Amabel, a little bit of a sort of theme in my play styles between these games?
Yeah. Yeah, I
I tend to
have.
be I tend to be very internal. I tend to be very like, let's each build our engine and then compare engines at the end. And that is certainly not the only way to play these games, and that might be skewing your view of
Your
them
empire
somewhat.
becomes one of the giants, astride the globe. And what will you do with this power?
Because we researched the idea of imperial power, he means.
Yeah, well, I mean, to a degree, it's skewed it, but also, like, it does say something about the way these are balanced as single player experiences that you're able to mostly win playing internally in a multiplayer game.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's far from unusual, right? You and I,
Yeah.
enjoy and play a lot of Euro style board games,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
those are games where that is the same thing, right?
so do you consider modern 4X games to be more closely associated with Euro style games than American style?
So, do you want to maybe lay out? There's a bunch of people in the audience who don't play modern board games, right?
Oh God. Yeah, I guess I should do work on this thing that's
Yeah.
supposed to be doing work on. Should add value here. Broadly speaking, there are two traditions of modern game design. There is an American tradition, which is rooted in um, generally in simulation or conflict. There are two different ways to look at it. And a Euro style game that's less conflict heavy and more purely mechanical. Um, this there's a
All
lot of
in all,
overlap
almost
between
a
the two.
kilometer
Really,
of
this
waterfall.
doesn't.
Sorry,
The very thought of it gives me vertigo.
sorry. I made
And
the
this
man talk
doesn't.
about a waterfall.
Okay, and it doesn't like hold true across all examples. You know, there are plenty of Euro style games that are very conflict heavy, and plenty of American style games that aren't, or that aren't particularly interested in simulating anything.
See,
But those
I
are
think it's
two kind of.
interesting. It's interesting that you describe the difference that way, because it isn't how I would describe the difference.
Yeah, well, I'm interested how you would describe the difference.
Because like you have your Euro style games and your American style games, and the difference between them. Part of the difference between them is definitely like the amount of direct player interference. That is like a theme. But I would say the biggest difference in between the American sort of board game tradition, the European board game tradition, is the way that they tend to allow randomness to affect outcomes.
Yes,
Where it's
that
much
is certainly.
you're much more likely to see roll for an outcome in an American game, whereas in a Euro style game, the randomness is going to happen in a way that you can respond to. You'll get randomness of setup, and then you will take deterministic or largely deterministic actions within a randomized situation.
Yeah, it's input randomness versus output randomness,
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
that randomness comes from it comes from, first of all, like traditional board game design, as far as like the stuff you get from the 1800s. So you get a lot of roll and move games. So dice are a very important part of board games for a long time,
Mhm.
and part of it is because um, that randomness in the American sense gives noise to the system, and that's
Yeah.
really integral for like simulation value.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're we're both describing the same thing, but we're coming at it from different sides because of the different way that we tend to approach these games. So land rights. Amabel, we have another civics question here. Does the land belong to the empire or the people?
People.
If we choose communal land, the fruits of the earth will be enjoyed by all. We get plus 10 food for each city per territory that city encompasses. So this will be plus 30 food in each of our current. Or it says attached territories. It might not count the first one, so this might only be plus 20 food in each of our cities. In any case, quite good, and it pushes us into the fully collectivist quintile of this bar, which is also, I think, a thing that's very good for us. The other option will make it so that money instead of influence is used to claim, attach, and merge territories, which is hugely negative for us. We are producing so much influence and so little gold. And it would push our bar back toward individualism, which is not very good for us in the first place because, again, we're not producing very much money. But also pushing it back sort of just toward the middle is not really what we want.
Now, this is
So we're doing this.
Positive for us in our position, or would you say is positive across the board for most positions?
Well, I mean, if people are making money and not as much influence, then they really like the thing.
Okay.
Why should individual wealth and political connections determine the status of something as timeless as the land?
Why indeed? Faceless voice man. Why indeed?
I've often heard like the development of Euro games described as a consequence of World War II, because in the post-war Germany, because we also call them German games, so a lot of them the kind of initial burst of them originated in Germany.
Yeah, absolutely.
They weren't allowed to have toys that simulated war as part of the like demilitarization and the occupation, and generally the let's not do that thing again.
Yeah.
Of it all. And so they tended to produce games with economic themes or games that emphasized cooperation instead of direct conflict. And again, there are some very conflict-heavy games that came out of Germany even at that time, and there certainly are American games like Sid Sacks's game Acquire is often lumped in as being very of a piece in conversation with the future Euro games and maybe even influence on some of the early Euro games of the 80s and 90s. But that's the general. It has to do with the amount of randomness. It has to do with, Euro games tend to have more elegant design, whereas American games have a reputation of being kind of a kitchen sink kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, if I can get you to be quiet for a second, Jesus. So our envoy here is building cultural bridges. The envoy's empire gains 10% of the visited foreign city's empire or influence per turn for each envoy unit in the territory. So I have just parked this envoy in their city, and I believe it is feeding us now. 10 influence per turn just from hanging out over there, which is good. Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be. Obviously, I'm teasing.
No. I mean it's
that was exactly the information that I was looking for that the people in the audience might need. Thank you very much.
So coming back to my question,
I forget that people can interact with each other in ways that aren't playful meanness for no reason. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Coming back to my question for you, do you feel, because you said that these feel like board games, do they feel more like Euro games to you, or what your experience is of American games? Because I don't think you actually have as much experience with American style design other than something like Chaos in the Old World.
Well, I mean, like I've played some like explicit war games.
Yeah.
Although I have to admit, it is sort of funny. My biggest experience with that kind of American style design is the quintessentially British Warhammer
Yeah,
I played much more Warhammer than any other war game.
And so Warhammer is interesting because that's also coming because there are 3 different things that we call wargaming
Check this reef.
that are in many ways completely different.
Yeah, that's
There-
true. Yeah.
There's the professional wargaming sphere. There is board wargaming, like hex and counter gaming,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like
Miniatures
wargaming,
wargaming, which is what 40K
which
is.
which itself is 2 different hobbies.
Yeah.
One of which is collecting and painting miniatures, and the other is telling people you're going to play with them someday. And I would argue that particular hobby is much more firmly rooted in British sensibilities.
The part
coming
where you
from-
tell people that you're going to play with them someday.
No, I mean the part with like miniatures wargaming itself. While there is a strong American scene and American development, it's definitely more of a British thing than than an American thing.
That's interesting. So if we're
like-
being told that to move into this territory, we would have to declare war on Green, even though it's not Green's territory. But Green does have an iron mine built here.
Huh.
Something curious is going on.
The first miniatures war game that really got any kind of traction was created by H.G. Wells, who was a British person, and it was quite popular with a lot of people.
Look at this. Look at the output of this tile. 15 food, 38 industry.
Wow.
So we've got this nice knot of different cultural makers quarters from our 3 different cultures that have cool quarters. Like, so as we're building up the game, we're sort of like filling in this valley, and they're all building off of each other, because we have the one region. You can see the border between the regions runs right through the middle of the valley. So we can build all of Ashlish's stuff right here, and then all of Unug's stuff right there, and they can all be giving each other adjacency bonuses.
Okay.
Sorry, continue.
Well, no, I mean, basically all I had to say is like, so when I talk about wargaming, I'm usually talking more about that American style design, like the Avalon Hill SPI thing, because that's what I fell into. I started out in my career wanting to do kind of midweight Euros, and no one would publish them. And then I did a war game as a lark, a hex encounter, kind of dry simulations game as a lark, and that sold, and that's kind of what I fell into. And I've moved away from that to a degree. I'm more interested in political history and social history these days, but it's certainly the tradition that I come from, which is why that's kind of my frame of reference.
I will teach you regret.
Oh, interesting. You are concerned for the people of Alcar-Lurops under the unjust rule of the priest king Dushanta. You know what's happened here.
No, what's happened here?
Our cultural output has climbed to such a degree that we are overwhelming his cultural output in his lands now. Yeah, this territory is receiving 308 cultural influence, and 194 of it is us.
Demand the territory from him.
Well, that's exactly what's happening, is we are allowed to do that. Here's the thing, I don't think I want to, because once it's a demand, if he refuses, then our options are wave off or go to war, and I don't want to go to war. I don't have any soldiers.
I mean, he's waved off 30 times. You can wave off once.
No, it's not a good thing to wave off. Like, that's just throwing away resources. He also rejected a plea to adopt my independent people's civic choice. Right. So our cultural osmosis is happening, and so his civics are starting to get swapped to ours. And he rejected.
Okay.
He had the resources necessary to reject one of those, and that creates a grievance.
So what can we do with the leverage that we have
So
right
what we
now?
can do with well, careful with that word because that's a game term. What we can do with what just happened here is we can turn it into leverage.
Yes.
We can renounce our rights to these grievances and just scoop that up into 10 bonus leverage. We also can just sit on it for a minute and let it generate war support among our people. Our people see their neighbors across the border suffering under the Achaemenid Persian culture and be like, just let him know that a thing could happen. We could be the ones to do the thing. As for
Yeah.
what can we do with our actual leverage,
That's
we
what I was
still haven't.
asking, yeah.
Hold just a goddamn minute. We can't expel his military forces because he's playing an expansionist culture right now, and that's like their whole thing is they can violate borders. We can force him to react to a demand, but we would have to make a demand that we felt we had him in a bind on first, which is not a place that we're in. We can't expose his undercover assets because that doesn't exist yet, I guess, until the early modern era. And we can't apply economic sanctions until the contemporary era is kind of a funny name for a time period, because all eras are contemporary with themselves. Sort of strange. The one that's at the time that the things are. So for right now, my inclination is to just let this sit and stew for a second, and then we'll sweep them up into leverage eventually. But right now, we just don't have a use for the leverage. So let's see here. What other agreements might we be able to sign? Plus 10% science cost reduction on technologies researched by the other empire. I don't know that I think he's ahead of us anymore on this. There was a long period where he was, but 50% of all leverage from leverage intel obtained by the other empire. This just gives us allow their population to migrate to either's capital in case of famine. And is it always true that both of us are receiving this bonus, or it's not clear to me. And signing empires accept their cultural coexistence. It will no longer generate oppressing white people grievances. Territories under the other empire's cultural influence will gain food and industry. So this would seem to be. This is good for the empire that's lower on influence. It would seem. That's strange. Oh, hold on. I think we're having some technical difficulties here. I'm gonna pause. We'll be right back, y'all. Okay, sorry about that. Minor hiccup in the very complicated process of doing all of this recording and connection. But yeah, we're back now. So the leverage isn't terribly interesting at this moment. All we can really do with it is force his war support down, which I don't actually care to do. For the moment, collecting leverage is mostly valuable because it might give us stars. Right? If we can get another 30 leverage, we'll get a star out of it. And so we will continue moving around. He's doing stuff. Things are happening. When things were sort of like settled between us and solid, it seemed like no leverage was generating. Now that there's more cultural exchange and there's like science and civics movement across borders, it seems like it's generating stuff again.
Yeah.
This leverage system I think is actually really interesting. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like this in a 4X before, but that's kind of like not to sound like I'm going overboard with it. That's kind of Amplitude's thing. That's just like sort of what I expect from them.
Yeah.
They are, in my opinion, much more interested in sort of innovating within the space than their major competitors.
Who are more interested in just,
Certainly one of their major
reading
competitors.
from their notes and getting it wrong.
Yeah. It's the one major company whose entire business model seems to be, well, do whatever Amplitude did last time.
With 5 farmers' quarters, this one city must have more farmers than most empires.
It is true. We have built a lot of farmers' quarters in Unug. Speaking of which, a disagreeable consequence of your great renown is the stream of desperate chancers and snake oil salesmen mingled amongst the genuine opportunities brought before you. Today brings a self-proclaimed legendary hunter from a far-off land, who claims to have snared a unicorn. He presents what he professes to be the fabled beast's horn, and swears it will heighten the radiance and physical energy of whoever owns it. It is an elegant and unusual object, to be sure, but the odd twisting markings along it could be artificial. Should you then get the horn? Something tells me we're going to get the horn either way here. So we can experiment on this. Whatever this really is, if it has some health boosting effect, then all should benefit from it, and we can strive to find out more. So we can invest in science here, costing us some money and gaining us some science and pushing our economic axis toward collectivism. Now, again, we are in the most collectivist quintile already, so this would not really have much of a game effect. This trader clearly preys upon the gullible. We can confiscate his horn so he cannot deceive others, and perhaps we can ascertain its true origin later. This will push our order axis toward authority, which is not particularly meaningful. Or we can just go ahead and buy it. The people will rejoice to know that so mythical an item is in your hands. Its invigorating properties are, in addition, most intriguing. 1,000 gold, which is most of our treasury. And Unug will celebrate for 10 turns. We're maxed out on stability already. This doesn't do anything. The social axis will move toward tradition, which is not the direction we want it moving in.
Yeah, I think experiments.
And then there is a chance of triggering another narrative event on all 3 of these. There's going to be follow-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, my inclination would be science investing.
Yeah, getting the bonus science is nice, and even though
it's a less consequential amount of science than it used to be. We're producing more, but still it's good.
Yeah.
All right, we will test it without purchasing it. And I've got this unit who's just kind of like living out here in the water until such time as it can learn to cross the water well enough to actually come and do something. Is that a single turns move? It might be. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and skip that. And this guy is going to go for this other leverage, but that's quite a trip. That's going to be a minute. Okay, I was trying to get as much vision over here as I could. We still haven't met Pink, and I was really hoping that we would. But they don't have any stuff that's actually visible from this side. Having a hell of a time introducing myself. It's really hard for me not to want to finish out our group of emblematic districts here. This emblematic district is really strong. I do love 20 extra points of food and industry. This is very hard to argue with, I think.
Yeah.
So we get the best immediate payout here. Building toward the harbor is kind of interesting because, the district that goes here will have a lot of adjacencies that it can benefit from. But it's less valuable as an individual district. I'm just going to put it down here. That's fine. And then where else can we still... Oh, right, this region doesn't have one yet. Yeah, I agree with that. Building around the obelisk is continuing to generating as many adjacency bonuses as possible. We have one region left where we can do it here. And continuing to build adjacent to the wonder. And then, unfortunately, to the east here, we're not quite in as good of a shape. I guess let's build... So if we build this way, we're building into all this rocky terrain. Building over here, we're kind of building toward, being able to get adjacent to Unug's districts eventually. Yeah, I think I like that a little bit better. All right, so we're going to queue all that up. We are still a builder empire. We still like to build districts for stars, and we're working on it.
Yeah.
We need 10 more for that first star. So
We really need to get another.
yeah, we need more.
City,
We
don't
need more
we?
land. Another city is not so relevant, right? Like we can build
Another
one such
territory.
district. Yeah, we need more territory is what we need, and that is a non-trivial problem.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go over this way instead. Let's try to feel out the rest of this area. So there are two big issues with that. Issue number one is most of the land is owned already. This is where you start to have problems with my very internal play style, because the right answer to this probably is to kill blue and take all their shit.
Yeah.
I am not inclined to spend my resources that way. I don't enjoy spending my resources that way, but it's probably something that we should be looking at very strongly. The other thing is that even if we wanted to take over land on a distant landmass somewhere, we actually just don't have a way of getting ground units over to these places because we still can't cross the deep water.
So how long until we can do that? What gets us there?
Well, that's going to be a scientific advancement sort of thing.
Yeah.
Blue has finally moved up into the era that we're in. So good for them. Way, way, way behind on everything, as you might imagine. Okay, we're going to get this leverage thing next turn. And yeah, for the moment, like, we're just kind of like staying inside of our box, building and researching as best we can, and
Yeah.
trying to learn things about the world. Okay, that was 20 intel, that one. So that's actually a pretty significant chunk of the way to the star. I'm gonna end the turn here so we can make a full turn's move out into the dark next turn. So we're about to finish our technology. I picked up feudalism because, first of all, just +1 food on every tile that's producing food. Secondly, better defenses if we should get attacked. But third, the colony model. Newly founded cities will start with some basic population and some free industry to use to, put up one or two simple buildings. This is a thing that I really like that this game does. It lets you, after a certain point, your cities don't all have to start from scratch.
Okay.
So let's look at our technologies here. Once we get to seafaring mastery, we can make more ships that are good at crossing water. Not actually our most primary concern. Up here, 3-masted ship, naval transports, naval units that replace land units are able to cross ocean tiles. So yeah, is this really? Do you have to get all the way to 3-masted ship before you're able to put good land units in the water? I guess so. I mean, obviously there are some cultures that are better at it.
Yeah. So we're kind of stuck until we get out of this era.
Unless we could say convince a neutral minor faction to join us. Unfortunately, only one seems to have spawned in the entire world, at least that we're aware of. Only one has survived to this point. And we did not have a head start on them. So we are We've built up some patronage, 60. We have an 11% share of the total patronage. So once we are over 15%, we'll be able to upgrade to our next thing here, and we need to be able to push past 60% in order to gain full control of their city in this way. And we are just paying through the nose into their coffers in the hopes of that becoming a viable way for us to get another territory. Okay, you don't really need to be doing anything in particular, so I kind of want to just get you like back on land and into a central area so you can respond to the appearance of more leverage, or more intel rather. All right, let's see here with you. Interesting that there doesn't really seem to be any more shallow water here. Okay, no, there's some. There's also some kind of strategic resource up here, which is interesting. All right, we need open borders from green.
Yes, greetings. I hope you don't mind if I stare.
I can't explore the world anymore until you open your borders to me.
Generous. A very generous proposal.
In exchange for 1,700 gold.
Listen. I will listen.
You don't have that much gold.
That's correct, I don't.
You must be out of your mind.
That's a very large amount of money. Okay, well, it's going to be difficult for us to explore.
Oh, especially because your gold is going down per turn.
Yeah. Well, we're feeding a ton into that independent people, and then on top of that, we're funding research into a unicorn horn right now. So between those two things, they're kind of eating up our whole income. And remember, we're paying the other players for access to their trade goods, and we know we were never making a huge amount of money in the first place. So, one of the calendar's most celebrated religious festivities has always culminated with a traditional team ball game for as long as people can remember. But now the sport is becoming a favorite activity in its own right. Played across the Empire, two of the best teams, one hailing from the financial powerhouse of Tikal, the other from the industrial heartlands of Unug, now want to vie for the title of Empire Champion, potentially diluting its original religious meaning. What is your position on this intended contest? See, this is actually this is interesting. A sort of a thing shifting position in the culture in this way.
Yeah.
So we can forbid it. We must maintain the sanctity of the tradition and find virtue in work, not play, adding bonus industry to both of the cities and pulling us toward authority. The players are instruments of God. In their intense rivalry, they can help elevate the faith. So we can control this to increase faith output and maybe trigger another event, or we can just support them. There's no controversy here. The match can be seen as a mere warm-up to its religious incarnation. This will give us bonus stability in both cities, which doesn't really help. Again, we're doing just fine on stability. Yeah, we're north of 90%. Well, you know what? We've started to build enough districts that actually stability is going down a little bit in Unug, but we're going to fix that in a more long-term way, really. So I don't know. Support doesn't seem great necessarily. Although, it actually does. It pulls our order access from one quintile into another, and it would actually give us a lot of influence. We would lose 5 stability at each of our cities, but +2 influence on each emblematic district. We have some of those for sure. I don't know. I guess this wouldn't be a terrible idea.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. No, we support it. Listen, the religious thing is still religious. They're playing non-religious ball game. We aren't really given information enough to know much beyond a ball game, but it seems to involve ball. So yeah, technologies. We have access to theology here, which would give us some city cap, some additional science infrastructure, the ability to hold festivals in our cities, which would give us bonus influence from some things. Guilds change the cost of trade routes. allow us to build forests, which can reduce, plant new forests, reforest tiles that have been, or I mean, I would probably just plant new forests too. And give us access to the commodity market, which is like kind of whatever. I mean, we're going to want to pounce on 3-masted ship as quickly as possible once we change eras, but that just means we need to get seafaring mastery eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Chivalry will allow us to build hamlets. Okay, so a hamlet is a thing you can build once per territory on any tile, and it can serve as an anchor point for other districts. So if you have a large region, you can build stuff away from the capital in that way, which is nice. Tourney fields give you bonus horses from your horse deposits. And eventually, you can build knights and stuff. Army logistics lets us push more units into the armies. I mean, military architecture allows us to build our unique unit, right? And we don't actually have the materials for that unit, but being able to build our emblematic is like... Do we just have 4? Okay, we're close. We have almost enough metals, almost enough iron. I don't know. Let's grab access to the elephants. Without enough metals, we can still build it. There's a production cost increase based on how short we are, and we're not short by that much, so it's a pretty small increase.
Okay.
Were we to be attacked or something, perhaps we should be ready for it. We do have the ability to claim a wonder. I suppose it's worth thinking about. Like, obviously, my inclination is to wait to do this until we actually want to build one, and right now we have a lot of buildings to make. But
yeah,
maybe it's a good idea to grab one before they all get grabbed up, right? So
some of them have exclamation marks. And that means
same thing that it meant before.
Oh, right. I forgot. I'm sorry.
So Angkor Wat gives... Okay, it's just a faith per food on the tile that's built on, and then faith from adjacent districts. That's fine. The Great Mosque of Jen is very similar, plus 5% bonus on future fame gains on your empire, and unlocks the repeatable constructible crepissage in the city where the wonder is built. I don't know what that is. Interesting, perhaps worth taking just to find that out. There's, of course, Notre Dame, which gives plus faith per researched technologies. And the Todaiji, which gives 1 extra industry per state religion follower. Bonus faith for forests and rocky forests. And they all sort of have that same bonus for every adjacent quarter. I kind of want to, let's just grab the Great Mosque because I'm curious about the thing that it allows us to build. And we can put our stake down on one of these and still have, for sure, enough influence to grab territory. Should we figure out a way to grab a new territory?
Also, can I say I like claiming the wonder, because something I noticed from the 2 games of Civ that I watched you play is, like, you might start building a wonder, then someone else will build it, and, like, that's not how... That makes no sense.
Well, it makes no sense, if you're trying to treat things as, like, simulationist.
I like this better.
Civ in a lot of ways, Civ is, and you can see this in, like, the sort of greater range of effects that they have and the greater fanfare that is given to them. In a lot of ways, Civ is a game that is about those wonders and finding ways to build them. And so they do have, like, an increased prominence. And so the sort of, like, the race to grab it, I think, does make more sense in that mechanical space. You're correct. It does not make any sense in the thematic space, but Civ only pretends to care about its thematics. As the day of the big game draws near, everywhere you go, from marketplace to thermal bathhouses, you hear commoners and highborn alike talking about the imminent match. Now the day has finally arrived, and the great arena in Tikal overflows with followers of both cities' teams, singing and cheering as they await the commencement of the game. Your presence is expected, but there are no neutral areas in the arena, so if you attend, you will need to choose a side. What will you do? Well, we can not attend, instead dedicate my time to reminding citizens of the match's religious roots, which again, there's a pretty big faith bonus.
Yeah.
We're very bad at faith output, though. Or we could support one of the cities. So if we support Tikal, it will produce 25 extra money per turn for 10 turns, and if we support Unug, it will produce 20 extra industry. I don't feel particularly strongly about this, really. Yeah, like we're losing money, but we're losing a tiny, tiny amount of money.
So, are we trying?
And that's only temporary, right? Like we're gonna stop
Yeah.
with the unicorn research soon, and
Okay.
I don't care about this at all. I would be inclined to take over productive just because like industry is always good.
Okay.
Now I do notice that a C point of interest has spawned over here, so I think I'm going to redirect our envoy to try to grab that.
It must be said that sighting a Norseman in a longship does not always turn out to be a happy event.
Aha! We have encountered Queen Brunhild of the Norse, vassal of Empress Aruelo. That's why the war declaration, if we had pressed into Pink's territory, that's why the war declaration would have been against Green instead of Pink. Vassalization. So
how does that work?
That's a whole mechanical space. That's a great question. I do not remember. We're going to find out together. Oh, look at all these points of interest that I just barely can't reach without losing my ship. Okay, well, yeah, let's go have a chat with...
At last we meet. Please don't disappoint me.
Okay, you're also a merchant. Your archetypes are trusting but vindictive. You have bonus 2 combat strength on units if they were rented from an independent power. And you tend to like mercenaries instead of using your own population. Yeah, I suppose that's actually a really interesting point. In a 4X game where military units do come out of your population, mercenaries are way more interesting. Right?
Yeah.
So, vassalage. They are... Where can we see... Ah, shoot. That's not what I meant to do. Yep, our agreements are unavailable because Queen Brunhild does not have their embassy under their control. Okay. So you're kind of not even in the game a little bit, I think. Well, I mean, you still have a fame score. It does seem like Green took over their nearest neighbor and is now just sort of feasting off of 2 players worth of points, I think is what's happening. 2 players worth of resources and everything. Is there encyclopedia? We're just gonna see if we can get a quick read on vassalage here. I am surprised to see a separate screen, for it to pull us out of the game. I was expecting this to be game UI.
Pop-up. Yeah.
Okay, and it failed to load. In their defense, we are definitely having some internet issues right now, so that might be partially related. But it is trying to call out to what's going on is it doesn't have anything embedded. It's trying to call out to an internet, like they're maintaining a wiki, which has the benefit. That's a good approach if you don't want to necessarily have to update people's games every time you want to make a change.
Right.
You can have just one source online of all the rules, but obviously it has a lot of downsides too, as we are here seeing. I guess there's not actually anything that's super more pressing for you to do than build the Great Mosque of Jen. And we probably want to build this in a position where it has a fair number of adjacent districts. Or just tiles that have a lot of value on them. Right, because this city gets a lot out of river tiles, and we have this set of rivers over here that's not being exploited right now. So if we put the mosque down here, it grabs some extra river tile. And we don't really have, we don't really have more than one river tile anywhere else that's not exploited yet. That's interesting. Well, I have to say I do like that then. Just grab the rest of the river all the way out to the sea. Okay, and I guess the ships are just like keeping watch at this point. I'm gonna run this ship out to here. We can grab a little bit more vision into the fog, but a lot of our ships are at this point running out of useful things to do.
Yeah, you're just kind of stuck waiting until the next.
Waiting until we've made some significant scientific breakthroughs.
Yeah.
How about with the mosque? Let's get that done as quickly as possible. 7 turns for a new wonder. It's not bad. Where are we at on our star? We are 6 districts away. So I do want to pound this wonder out. We're not going to have too much of a problem getting to that first star. Plenty of land to build over, but we are going to find that it's going to get prohibitive beyond that.
Yeah.
Like pretty quickly if we don't get a hold of some more land.
So how do you feel about like where you are in the game right now? Like, do you think
Condescending? What?
I'm not being condescending?
No, not you. Brunhilde.
Do you think you have a chance of winning?
I have to say, I am a bit taken aback at how effectively Green is scoring, and I am feeling like we are maybe not really in competition here. Now, obviously, the point of this series isn't to win a game in each of these things. It's to explore the mechanics and in particular to show you the mechanics of these things. And we are certainly doing that. An agreement has been canceled.
Friends or foes?
We are no longer monumental contractors with each other, and I suspect somebody is thinking of making trouble. I'm going to go ahead and renounce these for the
I
leverage.
hold no grudge.
You're like a dog doing tricks, but less impressive.
I totally forgot about those, and he drew my attention to them right before they were about to expire. So I do appreciate him doing that. He's walking around in my territory a little bit. We're 6 turns away from having access to our unit. But after we finish Unog, we could think about building some military units. I know I feel like I keep saying this. I keep going, well, listen, this is the time, and then we find better things to build. But it's nice, it's nice having better things to build.
Right.
All right, we can grab a couple of these. It is worth noting that he does not seem to have any navy to speak of. So our Pentaconter here is not like the greatest ship that's ever sailed the seas, but we do have full control of his port, essentially, if he decides to get clever. Let this thing recover in friendly territory for a second. Friendly is a strong word for the way we're being treated by these guys, but
Yeah.
you are just hanging out. That's really all there is to that. So we should now have passed. Yeah, we have passed the 15% point with these guys. We are pouring in patronage faster than the other players are. So we are gaining share here. So we could throw in a trading charter, which allows us to purchasing resources, helps extend this independent people's lifespan and provides patronage. Hiring mercenary army does the same, or we can just get 59 science from them each turn. What is our actual science output? 274. So I mean that's like 20% increase in our science output.
That's pretty good, yeah.
It is yeah, it is not bad, I think. Their natural lifespan is only 26 more turns. They will disappear from the game. Their territory will be disbanded, and that's the thing we need to, obviously keep an eye on for a lot of reasons. And that's kind of your job, is just to keep an eye on them for a lot of reasons.
I'll try my best.
No, not you, the boat. I was talking
Okay.
talking to the boat, obviously.
Okay.
All right. I think maybe we've made some headway here. We've built some things. I know we're a little tight on time today. So you know what? Actually, let me run us through one more turn here because we can finish the construction of the wonder, and we can see what crepissage is. Also, we can get a wreck.
We're tight on time because someone made plans. Amabel.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're saying that like I did something wrong, and that it sends a cold chill down my spine. I'm like, oh God, did I do something? Was I bad?
Oh, no. Sweetie, you've never been bad. You've always been a very good girl for me.
Also, that's not correct.
It is hard to believe that something so grand and sumptuous could be built with humble brick and adobe.
Okay, an agreement proposal.
Yes, greetings. I hope you don't mind if I stare.
I mean, sure, I guess.
Glorious.
Y'all love this monumental contractors thing.
This is unexpected. Excellent.
Very weird. You're very weird, folks. Okay. You don't currently have anything interesting to do. Just get over here and hang out in their city because it seems like a fun thing to do. And we're getting the cultural bridges bonus even without like formally being inside their city. But their city is kind of like in the middle of stuff. You got what you got. Return to safe territory. You are, I think, just parking. In the bustling city of Tikal, sailors from distant lands mingle with the locals, bringing colorful tales, fantastic legends, and, sometimes, peculiar fruits and vegetables. One such specimen is especially delicious. Your advisors tell you it appears well suited to flourishing in the soil of the homeland, and suggest planting it as a crop. What is your decree? We can dismiss this and become superstitious for a bit. A little bit of anti-science. The benefits should be plentiful, but there may be distrust, so we'll need to convince local citizens. Put on another layer. So we just lost this science investing effect, but we can apply another layer of it. Or we can endorse it and force the locals to plant it. Increasing industry, but I like the science is the thing, right?
Right.
Okay. So, this new thing, where is it? Here we go. From dawn till dusk, the city's inhabitants come together to reinforce the great mosque's adobe walls with fresh mud, cementing their own bonds too. So it grants a 15% bonus on future fame gains for 10 turns. But it requires a certain amount of industry. So, the more productive cities can complete it more frequently or more quickly and thus, have the bond up more of the time. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting option. We really do need to be building districts, obviously. Science districts in particular are a good idea. Just throw some stuff in some queues here. Because we do still need an awful lot of science. Okay, building down by the harbor will get us 9 points. I'll put it, building next to the wonder is always going to be fun. Okay. All right. So with that, we have now an effect that can goose our fame gains somewhat, and maybe we should be doing that in Nonog like a lot. But if we're having to spend 4 of every 10 turns doing that, I'm not sure that it's actually a gain in fame versus just trying to like do the things that make fame happen.
Yeah.
So we are 5 stars short of our or 5 districts short of our first star here. We did in fact cross the leverage threshold for the first leverage star, and we're
almost there for science.
we're almost there for science. We're sort of tottering toward everything else. We still need another 6,300 influence coming in at a rate of 185 per turn, so that's some distance away. These are getting, they're getting harder and harder to make. Another 13 points of population. It would be so big for us to get another city in a new territory somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
we'd be able to do that, like that fast early growth thing. We'd be able to pump out a bunch of districts. We do need 2 territories for a territory star. But yeah, all this stuff needs to be considered. And somehow green is still just like turboing along. Green is at 8,300 now. And it's stars enough to move into the next era already. To re-answer your question, Amabel, from earlier, I think we're going to lose this one. I think green got out ahead of us in a way that feels pretty overwhelming. But there is always another answer for that in a game like this.
Yeah.
Victory, American style.
Yeah, but you're not going to do that.
I mean, if we can't win any other way.
We are like 100 episodes deep into Forex School. I know you.
If we can't win any other way, I am absolutely going to do that. That's going to be it for us for today. Thank you all so much for watching. When you come back next time, perhaps we are going to begin building a standing army. Maybe. And we'll see you then.